Am I the a-hole for waking my husband up to drive me to pick up my car when I left my keys in my locker at work? A couple of weeks ago I accidentally left my car keys in my uniform pants at work, and left my pants in my locker. I don't wear my uniform home for multiple reasons. I just bring it home to wash. I have to. I realized when I got to the subway station, where I'd parked, that I'd left my keys back at work, a half-hour train ride and no guarantee I'd be able to get back in the building. It was after midnight. I called my husband to ask him to bring me the spare key. 22 times. I tried my son, but he was asleep. He's 19 and has a car, and didn't wake up when I called a second time. And I tried a friend. I didn't want to call too many people because again, it was after midnight. I kept calling my husband hoping eventually he'd hear his phone. I wound up taking an Uber home. I needed to go get my car because they ticket after 2 a.m. usually. So, when I got home, and I was pretty upset that I'd called 22 times and he hadn't answered. I continued trying to call him the whole way home in the Uber. When I got home, I went inside and up to the bedroom and woke him up. I was pissed that had this been a serious emergency, I wouldn't have been able to get through to him. He kept saying he had my number in his favorites so that if I called twice, the second time it would go through. But he had the phone on silent. And then put it on top of something soft. So he didn't hear it vibrating. He complained that I was mad at him for something I did. I replied that no, I was mad at me for forgetting my keys. That was 100% on me. I was mad at him for not having his phone on and that he's unreliable in an emergency, which thankfully, this wasn't a huge one. So, am I the a-hole for waking him up and being pissed that I couldn't reach him in what wasn't a big emergency, but what if it had been? The top comment is, I won't call you an a-hole OP, but some advice. You do have a legitimate point, but your delivery is off. Seeing that you clearly work a late job and are taking public transportation on your own at night, it is vital that you are able to reach someone trustworthy, particularly your husband, in the event of an emergency, big or small. And yes, I'd consider this an emergency because you're now alone at night without transportation. Use this as a learning experience for you both. Do not get mad at him, but express the importance of him being reachable, even if he is sleeping, during these times. Calmly express that you need him to have his phone off silent and or not on a soft surface when he goes to bed in case you need to reach him. Maybe have a similar conversation with your son. It is so important to have reliable emergency contacts who are reachable. I've had the same convo with my fiancée. Her phone is often dead. The few times she's been away or out late, I kindly request that she makes sure her phone is charged, and I make sure that I am reachable. And vice versa, if I'm away, I make sure she knows she needs to be reachable. Having this conversation in a calm manner where you express the importance of being reachable is so important, and I think you'll find this approach to be helpful and your husband to hopefully be receptive. ETA, a late-night Uber without being able to reach anyone is not an okay resolution, in my opinion. There are horror stories about what happens to women in this exact situation. At the very least, I would want to be on the phone with my S/O as she waits for an Uber and takes the ride home, if I can't get her for some reason. People don't understand what a deterrent it is to bad actors to simply have someone on the phone. The second comment is, no a-holes here. People here responding telling OP to call 911 if it was an emergency don't get the point. The point is that OP's partner was unable to be contacted. If there had been an emergency and emergency services were calling and calling, he still wouldn't have answered. That is what OP means when they worry about him not responding during an emergency. OP was not saying their partner should act as emergency services. On the other side, her husband didn't do it intentionally. There wasn't malice here. Everyone is so mad in the comments. Take a break, guys. Am I the a-hole for calling my granddad when my stepdad turned my room into a home gym? My 16M stepdad, 32M, is a total gym rat. I used to think the guy was cool, but now that I know him better, that's his whole personality. Everything is about calories and repetitions in this house. He's always telling me to watch my food, to be aware of what I eat, to lift more, despite me being in a good shape because I'm a swimmer. I don't think the guy is a stepmonster or a bad dude, but he's hella oblivious. Now, some important context is that my mom's 45F house is owned by my grandparents. They're the same as me, like my stepdad, but also think he's kinda random. Now, I usually spend 3 weeks at my dad's and 1 week at my mom for personal choice, and my room at my mom's is my childhood room because that's where we lived when my parents were married. The house also has another 3 rooms, not as big as mine, but big enough. My stepdad has been talking about having a home gym for a while and I knew my mom was on board. To be total and completely honest, I thought they're gonna use some of the other rooms and not mine, but I was really surprised when I came home from my dad's last week and found that they switched all of my stuff to one of the smaller rooms. I can't begin to describe what I felt. It's not the fact that they shipped me off to one of the little rooms, it's how they went trough my stuff and moved my things around with total disregard of my privacy, because I had a lot of stuff and some were in boxes with little to no care if they're fragile or not, and then, yeah, the fact that they kicked me out of my childhood room, the reason? My stepdad said that it was cool to have an in-suite in his gym. I just stared at them, did a 180 degrees and got the fuck out of there. Then at the park I called my granddad and told him what they've done. He drove quickly and flipped on them because 1. They never mentioned a gym, 2. The room was mine, what the, and so on. I said that I didn't care about the room anymore, but my granddad said they could either take the gym the fuck out and give my room back, or they could pay rent. They obviously gave me my room back. Now, my stepdad is kinda chill about it? He said I could have said something, like what the, as if I was expecting this, but my mom is pissed because I called my granddad, and because he basically chose my comfort over hers. She said I'm here 1 week and I could have put my ass in the new room, she's totally ripping me one off, and TBH I felt bad, IDK if I'm right anymore and I'm wondering if I'm an a-hole. The top comment is, not the a-hole, but your mother is. You don't trade someone's personal without asking him. Just like your stepfather thought you could have said something before calling your grandfather, your mother and stepdad could have said something to you before moving your things. And, the question of moving your room should have been an absolute no. Mothers should always have their kids' backs. She should never have put her husband's wants over her son's right to feel secure. The second comment is, the house belongs to your grandparents, so first of all they get to decide. The room was yours, your childhood room. If I found out my parents ever did that to me I would be super furious. How dare they take your stuff out, touch them, move them whatever to another room just because someone who came out of nowhere, your stepdad, decided to put a GYM there and do all that to your room? LOL, that sounds like a joke, and shame to your mother for accepting it, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for asking questions about my co-worker's daughter? My coworker has a daughter who has a bit of fame. She's not a celebrity or anything, but she is public. To give an idea, she's verified on Twitter and has a Wikipedia page, albeit small and outdated by a couple years. I find her very interesting and entertaining and occasionally check on her socials to see what she's up to. I ask him about her sometimes as well, and he sometimes tells little stories about her. He and his wife divorced when she was 18. On her social accounts, I've noticed she only has 3 posts in total about her dad on Instagram, one in 2020 for his birthday, one in 2019 which was a photo with him and her brother on Father's Day, and one in 2016 I think on his birthday too, which was an old photo when she was a child. For her mom, who still has the same marriage surname, she has a lot more photos and posts about her and is definitely a lot more affectionate for her too. Additionally, she also uses on her Twitter and Instagram her stage surname rather than her actual surname, aka his. I felt like I could trust asking him how things are between him and her, and his son too. He's asked me very personal questions about my divorce in the past, and I've worked with him for quite a while and am on pretty good terms with him as a work partner and friend. We spoke for a bit until I asked why he doesn't appear in any photos on her accounts. Her sarcastically replied he was camera shy. I said fair enough. I then asked why she likes using the stage name on her Twitter and Instagram. It's also the surname I think of a family that is close to her/her family, and he replied that he doesn't really fucking know. He sounded like a mix of sarcastic, angry, and disinterested. I asked a few more questions. He didn't really seem interested in answering. I could tell he was getting a bit annoyed, so I stopped. The next day, I arrive at work and he pretty much is ghosting and ignoring me. I don't think much of it until later the day when the boss comes and takes me aside and gives me a warning. Apparently I was asking him provocative and harassing questions, despite him not looking too bothered when I asked them. I go and try to talk to him and he just tells me to fuck off and leaves. This nonsense reminds me of the crap someone in primary school would do. I've tried to contact him and nothing, and I'm very annoyed at the moment and want to know, did I do anything wrong? The top comment is, this nonsense reminds me of the crap someone in primary school would do. Me too. So why did you do it? You stalked a guy on social media, figured out that maybe he and his kid don't have the best relationship. And then you harassed him about it all for your own voyeuristic pleasure. You're the child here, not him. Oh, and you either enjoy people's pain or you're completely tone deaf when it comes to reading the room. Yes, you are the a-hole. The second comment is, yes, you are the a-hole. Why are you so invested in his daughter's life and relationship with her dad that you're scrolling back 5+ years to count how many photos she's posted of him? That's creepy and weird, and your questions were invasive and nosy.